Glorilla just went from facing years behind bars to walking out of court completely cleared. The twist? She wasn't even home when the crime happened. What started as a violent burglary turned into a legal storm that could have ended her career. But the truth and the evidence told a different story. Here's how the case collapsed and why everyone's talking about it.
The night it all went down. July 19, 2025, it was supposed to be one of the biggest nights of Glorilla's career. Under the bright lights of Indianapolis, she took the stage at halftime during the WNBA All-Star Game, spitting bars alongside Let Her Cook, Typa, and TGI. The energy was electric, thousands of fans on their feet, and millions watching from home. For Glorilla, it was a celebration of everything she had worked for. But while she was riding that high, a very different scene was unfolding hundreds of miles away in Forsyth County, Georgia. At around 1:30 a.m., 3 masked intruders slipped into her gated subdivision. This wasn't a random break-in. These were calculated criminals who knew exactly what they wanted and when to strike. Inside the house, family members were staying over, thinking they were safe in a celebrity's home. That illusion shattered the moment they heard glass breaking and heavy footsteps. Panic set in, but one person in the home wasn't about to just hide. They were armed and ready to protect the property. Shots rang out, sending the intruders scrambling into the night. Thankfully, no one was hurt, but the fear left behind was real. When the dust settled, it became clear this was no smash and grab. The burglars had gone straight for high-value jewelry, ignoring other items. They were in and out fast, leaving behind more questions than answers. Who tipped them off? How did they know Glorilla wouldn't be home? By the time police were called, the damage was done. What should have been a straightforward case of armed burglary was about to take a bizarre turn. One that would turn the victim into the accused and set the stage for a legal battle that would grip headlines nationwide.
The investigation goes sideways. When deputies rolled up to Glorilla's Georgia home, the mission seemed simple: secure the scene, gather evidence, and hunt down the 3 masked burglars who had just terrorized her family. Shots had been fired, valuables were missing, and witnesses were shaken. All the signs of a violent felony that demanded swift action. At first, that's exactly what it looked like they were doing. Crime scene tape went up, major crimes detectives started combing through the house, and forensic teams moved in to collect trace evidence left behind. But then, things took an unexpected detour. One of the deputies claimed they smelled a strong odor of marijuana from inside the home. That single statement shifted the focus entirely. Instead of staying locked in on the armed suspects still at large, the deputies began discussing search warrants, not for stolen property, but for drugs. Within hours, they had a warrant in hand. A search of the master bedroom closet turned up what authorities described as a significant amount of marijuana, roughly 2 pounds, along with THC wax. To them, that was enough to trigger felony possession charges in Georgia, a state where anything over 1 ounce can carry 1 to 10 years in prison. In an instant, the narrative started to change. Glorilla, the absent homeowner and clear victim of a home invasion, was now being linked to serious drug charges. Meanwhile, the burglars, the actual armed criminals who had broken in, traumatized her family, and stolen expensive jewelry, were nowhere to be found. It was the first sign that this case was about to get messy. And as the headlines started to spread, so did a dangerous question. Was law enforcement more interested in arresting a celebrity than catching the real criminals?
Glorilla charged. Glorilla was still riding the high of her WNBA All-Star performance when her phone blew up with calls from her team. The news hit like a punch to the gut. She was now facing 2 felony charges in Georgia: possession of marijuana over 1 ounce and possession of a Schedule I controlled substance. The most shocking part,
She hadn't even been in the state when the alleged evidence was found. Cameras, fans, and event organizers could all vouch for her exact location during the break-in. In any other case, that kind of airtight alibi would have made her an untouchable victim, but here, it seemed to count for nothing. Georgia law is notoriously strict. While marijuana has been legalized or decriminalized in many states, in Georgia, possession of more than an ounce can mean 1 to 10 years in prison. Add a Schedule 1 charge, depending on what and how much, and the stakes go even higher. By Tuesday, July 22nd, a warrant had been issued. Glorilla could have tried to stall the process, fight extradition, or work legal angles behind the scenes. Instead, she walked straight into Forsyth County Jail and turned herself in. Her bail was set at $22,260, which she posted the same day. But the arrest photo, the headlines, and the speculation were already spreading like wildfire. News outlets framed it as a celebrity scandal. Social media exploded with debates about whether she was being treated fairly or made an example of. In a matter of days, the story had shifted from Glorilla's home invaded to Glorilla facing years behind bars. And yet, behind the scenes, her legal team was already preparing to dismantle the case piece by piece.
The public backlash and Glorilla's response. By July 24th, Glorilla had seen enough of the headlines twisting her into a criminal. She broke her silence with a fiery post on X that instantly went viral. My house got robbed while I was in Indianapolis performing at the WNBA All-Star Game. Instead of finding the suspects, they focused on some cannabis. 1, I wasn't busted. 2, my house got robbed. 3, I wasn't home. Long story short, I'm the victim, but I'm the only one arrested. The message was sharp, calculated, and impossible to ignore. She deliberately used cannabis instead of weed, a subtle but smart legal move that made her statement sound professional while highlighting the absurdity of the situation. Her fans rallied immediately. #FreeGlow started trending within hours, with celebrities, journalists, and even some legal analysts weighing in. The general sentiment was outrage. How could the victim of a violent home invasion be the one sitting in a cell? And then, in true Glorilla fashion, she flipped the narrative. Within 48 hours, her online store began selling $40 hoodies and t-shirts featuring her mugshot. Instead of hiding from the arrest photo, she made it a badge of defiance. The merch sold out within days, drawing comparisons to Travis Scott's post-arrest marketing and earning her even more publicity. What might have been a PR disaster turned into a branding win. But behind the bold moves and internet jokes, the stakes were deadly serious. She was still facing prison time, and the prosecution wasn't backing down. Her legal team, however, was just getting started, and they were about to expose serious cracks in the case against her.
Legal battle begins. Glorilla's defense team, powerhouse attorneys Marissa Goldberg and Drew Finling, wasted no time going on the offensive. From their first press statement, it was clear they weren't just defending their client, they were putting the entire Forsyth County Sheriff's Office on trial in the court of public opinion. They laid out 3 main arguments. She was the victim, not the suspect. This wasn't complicated. She was hundreds of miles away with thousands of witnesses when the alleged crimes occurred. The police exaggerated the evidence. The sheriff's office called it a significant amount of marijuana, but the defense argued the amount was barely over the felony threshold, and THC wax wasn't even properly weighed or tested before charges were filed. 0 burglary arrests. Despite having forensic evidence from the break-in, no suspects had been charged. Instead, all resources were poured into prosecuting the celebrity homeowner. But the real haymaker came with their motion to suppress the drug evidence entirely. Their argument? The search warrant was based on a deputy's claim of smelling marijuana, which they called a flimsy, subjective reason to enter someone's private space, especially during an active, violent crime investigation. Goldberg told reporters, "If law enforcement can show up to protect you from an armed invasion and instead search your home for unrelated offenses, then no one is safe in their own house." The motion struck a nerve in the public debate. Civil liberties advocates, legal scholars, and even some former prosecutors began speaking out, saying this case looked like a textbook example of police overreach and misplaced priorities. But while the legal team was poking holes in the prosecution's case, another uncomfortable question was simmering in the background, one that had nothing to do with the police and everything to do with loyalty. The loyalty question. While Glorilla's lawyers were dismantling the prosecution's arguments, another conversation was happening quietly, in the streets, in group chats, and behind closed doors. It wasn't about police tactics. It was about trust. When the burglars stormed Glorilla's home, they went straight for the expensive jewelry. They knew exactly where it was. That kind of precision doesn't happen without inside knowledge. And the people staying in her house that night, they would have known two critical things. Glorilla was hundreds of miles away, and anything found in her bedroom could legally be pinned on her. So why didn't anyone remove whatever could put her in legal danger before police arrived? There was time. The burglars had fled. Everyone knew law enforcement was coming, and yet the marijuana and THC wax were left right where they'd cause maximum damage. Some said it was carelessness. Others suspected betrayal. The possibility that someone in her circle not only failed to protect her, but might have tipped off the burglars in the first place. Glorilla didn't point fingers publicly, but in interviews, she dropped hints about the importance of surrounding yourself with people who hold you down when it counts. It was a subtle acknowledgement that when the spotlight hits, the wrong people in your corner can turn your success into their opportunity. Whether it was negligence or malice, the result was the same. Her own home became the scene of a crime that prosecutors tried to use against her. And while she was preparing for court, she had to face the chilling reality that the real danger might not have been just the burglars or the police, but the people she trusted most. The turning point. The real shift in Glorilla's case came during a pre-trial hearing that was supposed to be routine. The prosecution entered confident, believing the drug evidence was their smoking gun. But Glorilla's legal team was ready to dismantle it, and they did. First, they challenged the basis for the search warrant. The only justification on paper was a deputy claiming to smell marijuana. Goldberg argued that smell is subjective, unreliable, and easily fabricated, especially in a high-stress situation like an active burglary investigation. "If I smelled something is enough to bypass your constitutional rights," she told the court, "then every home in America is at risk." Next, they revealed mishandling of the evidence. Chain of custody logs showed gaps in documentation, meaning there were periods where no one could prove who had control over the seized items. That alone raised the possibility of contamination or tampering. Then came the kicker: no proof the drugs belonged to Glorilla. Witnesses testified that multiple people had access to the home and her bedroom while she was away. Without fingerprints, DNA, or video evidence tying her to the substances, the prosecution's narrative started to crumble. The judge listened closely, then delivered the blow that changed everything. The search warrant was invalid. All drug evidence obtained was deemed inadmissible in court. Without it, the state had no case. You could feel the energy in the courtroom shift. The prosecution, once confident, now looked cornered. Glorilla's supporters in the gallery broke into smiles, knowing the nightmare might finally be ending. But this wasn't just a legal win. It was the moment public opinion swung decisively in her favor. What had started as a scandal was about to turn into a story of vindication. Verdict: Glorilla walks free.
The morning of the verdict, the tension outside the courthouse was thick. Fans, reporters, and camera crews crowded the steps, waiting for the decision that would determine whether Glorilla's career and freedom would survive. When the judge announced that all charges were dropped, the reaction was instant. Gasps in the courtroom, cheers from the hallway, and social media lighting up with breaking news alerts. Glorilla wasn't just walking free, she was officially cleared of all wrongdoing. Her attorneys framed it as a landmark win for civil liberties. Today is proof that the system can get it right when you fight back, Drew Finling told reporters. Our client was a victim from the start, and now the record reflects that. Outside the courthouse, Glorilla addressed the crowd. She thanked her legal team, her fans, and, in a pointed tone, the people who stayed solid when it mattered. She didn't name names, but the message was clear. Not everyone in her circle had her best interests at heart, and she knew it. The focus now shifted back to the burglary. With the drug charges gone, the sheriff's office was under renewed pressure to actually catch the masked intruders who started this entire chain of events. But Glorilla wasn't just moving on. She was turning the experience into fuel. She announced that her next project would tackle themes of betrayal, resilience, and justice. If they thought this was gonna break me, she said with a smirk, they forgot who they were dealing with. The story that began as a potential career-ending scandal had transformed into a public victory and a warning to anyone who thought they could right her downfall.
Conclusion: Glorilla's case was more than just another headline about a celebrity in the law. It was a masterclass in how quickly the system can flip the script on you and how determination can flip it right back. In less than 2 weeks, she went from being the victim of a violent burglary to facing felony charges that could have ended her career, only to walk away completely cleared. The ordeal exposed 2 hard truths. First, that loyalty in your inner circle is priceless and not always guaranteed. Second, that law enforcement priorities can sometimes stray far from protecting victims, especially when there's a chance to make a high-profile arrest. But it also highlighted the power of fighting back. With a smart legal team, public support, and her own resilience, Glorilla turned a near disaster into a victory that strengthened her image instead of destroying it. The burglars may still be at large, but the case leaves behind a lasting reminder. No matter how famous you are, your freedom can hinge on the people you trust and the strength of your defense. And for Glorilla, this was more than just a legal win. It was a statement that she's here to stay.